Hi, my name is Emma Carpenter, and I'm here today to welcome you to Elizabethton's first ever virtual Thanksgiving parade. We want to say thank you to everyone who submitted a balloon. We are so impressed with your hard work. For the next few minutes, we will check out all of the balloon creations and learn a little bit more about the real Thanksgiving parade sponsored by Macy's. First, did you know that the first ever parade in 1924 officially began as the Macy's Christmas Parade? From 1924 to 1926, elephants, camels, tigers, goats, and other live animals borrowed from the Central Park Zoo were the main attraction. In 1927, the zoo animals were replaced with the huge helium balloons we know today, after the animals were not too popular with the kids attending the parade. Beginning in 1928, balloons were released into the air after the parade, and prize money was awarded to anyone who found their skin. After the 1932 Macy's Day Parade, a giant cat was released and nearly sparked disaster when an aviation student spotted it and decided to ram her plane into the cat's neck. Whether this was to collect the prize money, nobody knows. The balloon disabled her wing and nearly caused the plane to crash. The instructor seized control at the last minute, saving them both. That was the last year Macy's released their balloons. From 1942 to 1944, Macy's president Jack Straus decided to cancel the parade for the first time ever due to America's involvement in World War II. Macy's instead donated 650 pounds of balloon rubber to the military. When the parade returned in 1945, 2 million spectators turned out, including, for the first time ever, camera crews. We are now going to hear Balloons Over Broadway by Melissa Sweet. This is the true story of Tony Sarg and the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, as read by Jennifer Orcod.
Balloons Over Broadway, the true story of the puppeteer of Macy's Parade, by Melissa Sweet, a Caldecott Honor winner. Anthony Tony Frederick Sarg, 1880 to 1942. Every little movement has a meaning of its own. Tony Sarg. From the time he was a little boy, Tony Sarg loved to figure out how to make things move. He once said he became a marionette man when he was only 6 years old. His father had asked him to feed their chickens at 6:30 in the morning every day. Tony had an idea. What if he could feed the chickens without leaving his bed? He rigged up some pulleys and ran rope from the chicken coop door to his bedroom window. That night, he spread chicken feed outside the chicken coop door. The next morning, Tony pulled on the rope and the door to the chicken coop opened. The chickens ate their breakfast, Tony stayed snug in his bed, and his dad, so impressed, never made Tony do another chore. When Tony grew up, he moved to London, where he discovered that no one was making marionettes for kids anymore. So out of wood, cloth, and strings, Tony began to make puppets. He figured out ways to make his marionettes' movements so lifelike that they performed as if they were real actors. Word soon spread about Tony's amazing marionettes. When Tony moved to New York City, the Tony Sarg marionettes began performing on Broadway. In the heart of New York City, in Herald Square, was the biggest store on earth, R.H. Macy's department store. Macy's had heard about Tony's puppets and asked him to design a puppet parade for the store's holiday windows. So Tony made new puppets based on storybook characters, then attached them to gears and pulleys to make them move. In Macy's Wondertown windows, Tony's mechanical marionettes danced across the stage as if by magic. All day long, they performed to shoppers jostling for a better look. But Macy's had an even bigger job in store for Tony. Many of the people working at Macy's were immigrants, and as the holidays approached, they missed their own holiday traditions of music and dancing in the streets. Macy's agreed to put on a parade for their employees, and they hired Tony to help. Tony, too, was an immigrant, so he loved the idea of creating a parade based on street carnivals from all over the world. He made costumes and built horse-drawn floats and Macy's even arranged to bring in bears, elephants, and camels from the Central Park Zoo. The animals joined hundreds of Macy's employees on Thanksgiving Day, 1924, winding their way from Harlem to Herald Square. It was a dazzling parade. In fact, Macy's first parade was such a success that they decided to have one every year on Thanksgiving Day to celebrate America's own holiday. Each year the parade grew, but when Macy's brought in lions and tigers, in addition to the bears, elephants, and camels, the animals roared and growled and frightened the children. Macy's asked Tony to replace the animals.
Tony, can you think of something spectacular?
Okay. Tony hoped to replace the animals with some kind of puppets, but his marionettes were less than 3 feet tall. He would have to make much larger puppets in order for them to be seen in the parade. And how could he make them strong enough to hold up in bad weather, yet light enough to move up and down the streets? Tony knew of a company in Ohio that made blimps out of rubber, the perfect material for any weather. When he called the company and showed them his sketches, they agreed to make what Tony wanted. Still, how could Tony make his big puppets move? Then Tony had an idea from an Indonesian rod puppet in his toy collection. On Thanksgiving Day, Tony's creatures, some as high as 16 feet, spilled into the streets, and the crowds cheered wildly. Part puppet, part balloon, the air-filled rubber bags wobbled down the avenues, propped up by wooden sticks. By now the sidewalks were so packed with people that only those in the first few rows could really see the parade. Tony realized his puppets would have to be even bigger and higher off the ground. And though the sticks helped to steer the puppets, they were stiff and heavy. Tony wanted his balloons to articulate, to move and gesture, more like puppets. But how? With a marionette, the controls are above and the puppet hangs down. But what if the controls were below and the puppet could rise up? During the next year, Tony set his new idea into motion. This time, he asked the company in Ohio to make balloons out of rubberized silk, as strong as rubber, but lighter than rubber alone. Most important, Tony ordered the balloons to be filled not just with air, but with helium too. Since helium is lighter than air, it would make the balloons rise. Once the puppets were completed, they were deflated and shipped back to Tony in New York. Tony did not know if everything would go as planned. What if the balloons are filled with too much helium? What if one hits a sharp object? Will they fit under the L, the elevated train track? It was still dark on Thanksgiving morning when Tony filled the balloons with helium, tethering them down with sandbags. By 1 p.m., the sidewalks were packed with people ready for the parade. Then, one by one, Tony cut the lines to the sandbags. Let's have a parade! And the magnificent upside-down marionettes rose up to the skies. Nodding and waving to the crowds below, they sailed past Central Park. They sailed down Broadway. They shimmied and swayed through the canyons of New York City. High above the crowds, they flounced in the afternoon wind, pulling the rope handlers this way and that. Yet with every heave-ho, the balloons gestured and articulated like wild puppets, and the crowd screamed for more. After the balloons were eased under the L, they ended in front of Macy's at Tony's Wondertown windows. It was a parade New Yorkers would never forget. And from that day on, every Thanksgiving morning, crowds have lined the sidewalks of New York City to see what new balloons would rise to the skies for Macy's famous parade. Tony Sarg, the puppeteer who loved to figure out how to make things move, had set the stage with a little rigging for a puppet to be anything anyone could imagine it to be.
You enjoyed that story. Today, it takes about 90 minutes to inflate a large parade balloon, with the roughly 12,000 cubic feet of helium needed to float. That much gas requires up to 90 handlers to keep it anchored. About 4,000 volunteers work the Macy's Day Parade every year. A typical balloon handler, for example, must weigh at least 120 pounds and be in good health. Balloon pilots who lead the handlers by walking in front of the balloon must be capable of walking the whole parade route backwards without falling or getting lost. Macy's offers pilot training 3 times a year. Macy's provides costume for most of their parade participants, around 4,000 individual uniforms last year. Since 1968, the parade floats and balloons have been designed at the New Jersey-based Macy's Thanksgiving Parade Studio. The floats are built in detachable sections and put into 12-foot by 8-foot boxes for transport through the Lincoln Tunnel. To construct a single new balloon, it costs at least $190,000. Once a balloon is built, it costs about $90,000 a year to maintain after that. And while many parade performers are volunteers, they require more than 300 dressers and makeup artists to get TV ready for the 50 million annual TV viewers. Now, let's check out some creations from people in our community. To start us off, we have Sammy from Sidekick Therapy Partners. Sammy and his friends serve kids in 16 different East and Upper East Tennessee area school systems, and homes, preschools, and daycares with a variety of speech, language, swallowing, feeding, fluency, voice, auditory, and language processing disorders, and other communication disorders. This is his first appearance in a parade. Clifford is a parade regular. The Clifford the Big Red Dog balloon was in 12 consecutive Macy's parades. He is outdone by another dog, Snoopy, who holds the record for number of balloon designs. BB-8 from Star Wars debuted in the Macy's Parade in 2019. We are lucky to have The Mandalorian, The Child, and R2-D2 joining us from a Johnson City family today. The Red Power Ranger is another Macy's classic, appearing in the Macy's Parade from 2014 to 2019. He measured at 77 feet long, making him one of the longest balloons in current parade history. A few more fun facts. A falloon is a float-based balloon. They were introduced in 1977. A balloonicle is a self-powered balloon vehicle. They were introduced in 2004. Claus has generally appeared at the end of every Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade since 1924. The only Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade that Santa has not ended is the 9th Parade from 1932, which he instead led. He was a closing message for you now.
Ho 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 ho! Thank you to everyone who submitted balloons. It definitely got you on the nice list. I'll be coming to see you soon. Be good. Happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas! Ho 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 ho!